Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I'm so grateful that you're here. Jeez, YouTube, I don't know what's going on today, but some serious technical difficulties. You'd think we were still in a Mercury retrograde. And with Mercury in Pisces, it's not surprising that things are not very grounded or stable in terms of information, communication, and it's just literally swimming all over the place, isn't it? So welcome. This is the first transmission since the equinox came on the 20th when the sun came into Aries. I'm a little discombobulated because I've tried to go live like 4 different times now, and it totally impacted my flow. So I'm going to try to get back into this flow state here. Welcome. Happy Monday. We did have the equinox over the weekend, and then which was Saturday morning, 5:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sunday, oh wow. Yesterday we had a lot of incredible transits. We're going to go over all of this stuff, but we did have the first quarter moon squaring the sun coming right into Aries, and some incredible transits. We also had Saturn trine Mars, wow, in Gemini, in air signs. We had Mercury in a sextile to Uranus, the water Mercury in Pisces, Uranus still in Taurus, and Venus moved into Aries as well. And so the path ahead has gotten, I wouldn't say necessarily clear, because Mercury in Pisces, because we are so visual and we do use our minds so much to conceive of the reality around us. And that is really the job of Mercury, at least partially. And that third house in Gemini is the immediate environment, and to move through that immediate environment, either through the realm of our mind, rationality, logic, flow of information. We are constantly interacting with data in our environment, and how we make sense of it is the result of the functioning of our nervous system. And Mercury is a big part of that as well, as the actual transmission of the signal through our nervous system, and the sensory and perception aspect, especially within the immediate environment, making sense of the immediate environment. So it's not exactly clear when it's still in Pisces. It's very imaginative and watery and visual and dreamy. How are your dreams still? I'm sure that they're really starting to ramp up now that the Sun and Venus are in Aries. So the path may not be entirely clear, but it is definitely pushing us ahead with some momentum now that we have the sun in Aries, exalted in Aries, right? Not at home in Aries, but very familiar and comfortable in Aries. And then also the moon is in Cancer, also at home. And this is where they had the first quarter square. We're in these 2 signs, very cardinal energy. There's momentum behind us right now when it comes to the sun in Aries. Of course, the expression of our identity and our fulfillment in an expressive outward way with the sun, and then with the moon, how we feel, our emotional landscape, as transient as the water itself, moving. There is momentum because we have cardinal water, right? Cancer is the 4th house. It is the familial bonds, where we feel at home. And the moon is at home in Cancer, right? Because there's containment. There is a structure that is the root system to the core of who we are, and our emotional bonds of our family, of the tribal identity, the regional identity, our national identity. Patriotism is a big part of that 4th house. As much as we want to, and it expresses itself more in the 10th house when we all come together, but the feeling and the love and the bonding and the loyalty is very much a Cancerian and 4th house. And remember, the United States is a Cancer sun. So the path ahead may not be entirely clear right now, but we are way more clear about our role and our movement on this path than we've been in a while, especially now that the Sun and Venus have moved out of Pisces into Aries. There's the the fog has been so thick, and especially with Neptune and Pisces in the mix too. The fog has been very, very thick. Disinformation, propaganda, confusion, no boundaries, the victim mentality that goes along with Pisces, the martyrdom, because everything is everything else. You can't get away from feeling the feels of everything and everybody around you in Pisces. So it has been foggy, it has been confusing, and now that the sun, which again is that masculine part of us, the expressive part of us, that solar Leo part of us, the center of who we are, the Kundalini energy encapsulated into the essence of who we are. And then Venus, our self-worth, who and what we value, what has value to us, and the very material earth that we are part of now has some momentum behind it, now has some impulse to be something, and from a very subjective position, right? Aries is about the ego consciousness, and nothing, there's no individuation and there's no development in this lifetime without starting from a place of I am. So this is where this is where the sun and Venus are. There's momentum behind us in terms of our self-worth, like I said, our expression, our fulfillment. And this is giving us the impetus to at least start moving down the pathway. We see in the distance, the fog is cleared enough in the distance that we see the beautiful Bell Rock, as I have on the thumbnail, the imagery for this transmission. That is my own photography in Sedona, Arizona. That is Bell Rock. The fog has lifted enough now that we can at least see some measure of a pathway ahead. We can see the trajectory of where we're headed. And Bell Rock has, I experienced it as a very feminine resonance when I was there. If you do some research about the vortices in Sedona, you'll learn that Bell Rock has also been attributed to more of a balanced polarity of masculine and feminine, whereas the airport vortex was very electrical, very Aquarian, very masculine energy. It was very obvious when I stepped into that vortex. And what it felt like. Bell Rock to me was much more nurturing and feminine, but I have a feeling that it gives you what you need when you go there, but she still has a very feminine quality to me. And that was a very profound moment going up onto Bell Rock for me. And this was in January of 2019. So the beginning of 2019 really setting the tone, at least for my own experience, of what to expect as the next couple of years unfolded. And here we are, we're in 2021, and it has gone pretty much exactly as what I channeled in that moment. So we do see the path ahead. It may not be entirely clear, and our mind may not have, as much of a logical grip on what's happening. But again, that's about the trust and the surrender that the Pisces archetype represents, because we are merging back into source in Pisces. But there are parts of us now that are ready to move into the next stage. So we're still kind of in this interesting transitory moment, but at the same time, there is a lot of momentum moving forward. So we're going to look at, I just want to recap the astrology of the weekend. Before I do that, if you are here as a result of my presentation on Redream the World in the Age of Aquarius, thank you so much for being part of that with me and also joining me here on my channel. That was an incredible event. I'm still listening to the other presenters and taking in the information. I've learned so much already, and I'm so just grateful to have access to it and be part of it as well. And to anybody here was a presenter as well, wow, thank you so much. I am making my way through everybody's presentations, and they've just been fantastic, and I've learned so much from that event. So I'm happy that you're here if you found me through that event and now you're on this channel. So welcome. That was a significant event to be having over this equinox weekend. So let's look at the equinox. Let's look at just recap real quick, guys, just real quick as we go through the weekend here. I'll minimize here. We'll bring up the chart. There we go. So this is the chart, in fact, for the equinox. And I talked about it already last week as well. And there's going to be a bunch more astrology to go along with this for this next following week, or this week, not the following week, but this week leading up to the full moon is going to be a big deal. Very big deal. So, but in the meantime, let's talk about what happened over the weekend, because we had the moon in Gemini. It had met Mars, it had met the North Node, and then passed there and was in a trine to Jupiter in Aquarius, was squaring Neptune that has now moved into the next degree, okay? It has gone from this very tactile, trusting, almost naive. It's really about trusting our senses and trusting that innocence and that childlike quality to know that there is good coming, that there is the cycle is wrapping up, but it's very, like I said, it's very tactile. There's no real way to rationalize it, and there's no way to ground it into anything except what we actually feel in our body. And this is why energetic hygiene and getting into your body, it's come up as a message a lot last week in the transmissions, has been getting into your body so you know what it actually feels like in your body when energy shifts and when it moves. You know, for me, after spending, a decade and a half as a body worker and practicing Reiki as long and using Reiki on a very regular basis with my bodywork clients for that long, I learned very directly what it feels like when energy shifts in the body. I learned to trust that and to tap into that when you want to check your gut about something. So it's important that we are in this position here where we can utilize that as a sense, right? And that's how we can know when things are true and they have truth and they resonate with us, because we can feel that energy shift in our body. That's what the gut check is really all about. When you have, an upset stomach, or you have butterflies in your stomach, there's so much of your immune system also is in your gut, but also the energetic aspect moves through your whole body, and being able to know what that feels like is a really helpful tool and a barometer in a lot of ways. So, but Neptune has now moved into the next degree, so 21 to 22 degrees. And this is really about bringing a peak experience, maybe through the equinox, bringing that peak experience into everyday life, right? And this is what leads me into this position where now we do see the path ahead a little bit clearer. It's not entirely something that we can wrap our rational and logical mind around yet with Mercury, but we are getting visualizations. We are getting inspiration. We are getting transmissions that are much more archetypal and maybe in our actual body. Energy medicine is in the Pisces archetype. And so the Reiki energy, the movement of energy through our body, allows us to be an empath too. Now we're taking that peak experience, whatever that may have been for us, which is why it's important to know your chart so you can see where Neptune is transiting and how it's making aspects to other things in your chart. It's now, we've gone from this tactile, very innocent, just feeling into it, and now we are applying that to everyday life. We're figuring out now how to bring it down into the everyday. And Neptune is the great dissolver. And so it does dissolve all of the boundaries. And so in some ways, it will dissolve the boundaries that were holding us back in everyday life in order to apply this peak experience. So something to be mindful of now that Neptune is shifted. And that was in, the square with the Gemini moon. This is a lot of mutable energy. And of course, it is something that we can, it's something that it's the realm of feeling versus ideas between Gemini and Gemini and Neptune, or Gemini and Pisces. So there was the peak experience likely was some sort of tumultuous but revolutionary individualization, right? An outburst of some sort, either internally, and especially with the moon, of course, internally, emotionally, intuitively. There was some sort of shifting, right? There was some sort of rebalancing within us that Jupiter absolutely was in support of. Jupiter in Aquarius, that is giving us the courage and the resiliency to face adversity, right? Jupiter is the advocate, right? Jupiter is the manager. Jupiter is, there's good fortune and it's very benefic and expansive, but Jupiter is the lawyer. It is the advocate. It is the manager. It is the energy or the archetype of leadership, but also representation, right? Of collective and social values. And so this representation and this advocate, this managerial energy is in a position, or had been in a position, is now since moved out of this degree. But it was about giving us the resiliency and to face up to what seems like disappointment. And the moon is, just as malleable as, our emotions are just as malleable as Gemini is mutable air. And so there's definitely this readjustment that Jupiter really was giving us that resiliency, because when you are in a position of management, as an advocate, as a lawyer, right, as a representative of not just yourself, but a collective, you have to be able to hold that line, right? And so that part of ourselves, or that representation, was really structurally supporting what was an internalized adjustment, I think, in terms of our mind and in the realm of ideas and data, which Gemini represents. So that was the day that the sun came into Aries. And so there was an awakening, right? The impulse to be. We really want to be something at that point. And so it was a pretty action-packed weekend astrologically, because then we also have the moon moved into Cancer, and it was in a square almost right away to the Aries sun, both in the second degree, which was the mirror image or the objective aspect of that sign. And so the capacity to look objectively at ourselves, that's where the sun was, in a square to the moon. And of course, these squares are never anything that resolve. You have to just lean into the discomfort of these squares so you can learn something from them, right? And then you have cardinal energy, Aries and Cancer, movement and momentum behind it. And so they're going in different trajectories, and they're going with a lot of momentum behind them. One is about being objective, looking objectively at ourselves and other people with the sun. And then the moon, how we feel, is the ability to expand our consciousness by stabilizing our point of view at a higher level. And so you have to, if you want to be objective and to look objectively, there's a certain amount of being involved in the situation, whereas the moon was putting us, I would say, leading us emotionally to kind of be hovering above everything else and to elevate into a wider perspective, which does allow us to be more objective, but at the same time, in order to reveal human nature through that objective consciousness, we have to kind of come back into this impulse to be something. We can't necessarily just hover above it. So the crisis in action is always the first quarter square, right? And what was the new moon in Pisces, right? The Dharma. What is our Dharma? Who are we? What are our limitations? What are our assets? And what are our skill sets? How are we going to live out our unique Dharma as part of a collective whole? And so right away from that, New moon, here's our first challenge. Are we going to be a capacity to look objectively at ourselves, right? Because that's how you will come to terms with what your dharma is and who you are here to be, is looking objectively. But at the same time, we do need to emotionally take ourselves out of that situation to a certain extent so we can get that wider perspective. And so what are we going to do? And this first quarter square with the sun and moon plays itself out over the entire week as we lead up to this really powerful full moon that has the sun, Venus, and Chiron all conjunct with each other in Aries in an opposition to a Libra moon. She's not really it's not very strong in Libra. Let's just put it that way. So this is Sunday, right? This is Sunday, and we have not only that, Venus moved into Aries this day, so now she's going to be also wanting to embody, right? Wanting to the impulse to be, and Venus in Aries, right? She's hot. She's pulling it all in too, and she's very fierce about it, and she really doesn't take no for an answer because she's just it's just an attractive force, the Venus archetype, and our value, right, and our self-worth is really going to be channeled through this cardinal fire, this spark to be, this impulse to be. Now, along with that, Mercury in Pisces came into a sextile with Uranus. And so as long as we are able to, it's hard to see, but if we can at least let go of everything that is holding us back, is weighing us down logically, mentally, in terms of communication and information, if we're able to let go of that, it really is supporting our ability to make do with what we have in order to create happiness in the darkest of times. This is where Uranus is situated, 8 to 9 degrees of Taurus. The ability to have faith in the cyclic renewal of nature, and in that faith is what allows us to create something, to celebrate something, to have joy, and to cultivate it within, whereas everything outside of us is still in the process of coming out of its hibernation in some ways. So we have to let go of things that aren't working for us if we want to spur ourselves forward, not just for ourselves, but for everybody, because Pisces is about the collective. It really is, but we have to drop all the unnecessary weight in order to do that. And then on top of that, we had Mars in a trine to Saturn. Man, Saturn has been relentless, as usual, in this position of Aquarius that is almost forcing us to be silent, to let it all go. And you can see that too with Mercury and Pisces. You have to learn to let go of what is unnecessary baggage to a certain extent in order to really, hone in on what we are here to do collectively, especially with our mind. Saturn is just like, it is in the silent hour that we are going to be inspired, and there's no getting around it with Saturn. There's just none. And so in a trine to Mars and Gemini that is opened up to new lands, like we are opening up into new land. Like I said, that fog is lifting. And we're starting to see a path ahead. And Mars is ready to go to these is like pioneering. And the trine to Saturn is like, yes, and it's really about emptying your mind, letting go of everything that is static and is getting in your way, essentially, that is not yours, and keeps you from having that laser pointed focus of awareness that Aquarius represents. It is like a laser point, because it is everything consolidated into one stream of consciousness that moves through the collective, moves through the universe. So we can pioneer, right? We see all of the new beginnings and the possibility with Mars and Gemini in terms of ideas, information, communication, data. But it's going to come from a very structured and crystallized and almost forced into a silence in order to get inspiration. Now, if we don't do this, and again, if we are not able to drop all of this excess weight, in terms of our thoughts and ideas and communication and data transmission, then we are going to keep getting static and be like a radio frequency that's, got a billion stations all playing at once, and you can't really find any inspiration there. So if we really want to pioneer into this new area, we do have to heed Saturn's very paternal, very boundary creating, wall, essentially, in order to move ahead and to pioneer into new territory. Okay, this is still all on yesterday with the first quarter square, and as we come into today, the 22nd, here we are. Again, the moon is in Cancer. She is all about being at home. What makes us feel safe and at home? What is it that we, it's like, what is our security blanket, but in a good way, right? This is where our emotional landscape functions the best, is when we feel safe and secure and amongst, in a position that we can gather our personal power, right? What is our root system? That is what Cancer represents, and this is why the moon is at home in Cancer. So what else do we have today that's going on? Well, at the same time that the moon is squaring Cancer, here, hold on. The moon is going to square Chiron. We got this 8 to 9 degree thing going on here. This has already happened today, by the way. Very early in the morning, if you see. So the moon is in a square to Chiron, and then comes into a sextile with Uranus, and then a trine to Mercury. So these things are all kind of working together. 8, 8, 8, and 8, or 9, 9, 9, and 9 if you round up for the Sabian symbols. So Chiron, 9 degrees of Aries, this is about our focused intention on the big picture. I've talked about this many times now because this is a big point of this full moon that's coming. We have to keep our attention focused on the big picture. We can't manifest unless we are very focused on and concentrating our attention on the whole picture that we see, the whole impression that we see. Now, so, and the moon in square, there is an innocence here with the moon in Cancer, where we're just kind of innocently plunging into our own emotional depths to learn something, to discover something. We're curious right now with the moon. Now, the reason it's in a square, to Chiron, I would say let's take the moon and Chiron out of the equation, and we have Cancer and Aries in these cardinal energies that are again squaring. Remember, we went back to the first quarter square. Cancer and Aries in a square to each other. This is cardinal energy. One is about the impulse to be and the spark of life that is Aries, and Cancer is cardinal water. It is the chariot. It is protection and armor and the bonds, right? This is the movement is in the connection of the bonds. It is the roots digging down into the soil, right? This is going down. This is going down into the core of who we are with Cancer, whereas cardinal fire is out in its expression, right? It is just blasting out with Aries. And so, we have to look at the whole picture, of course. And then with Cancer, this is about diving in. This is about reaching down to discover something. And, we're concentrating our attention on this pool of water, right? Using this pool of water as like a crystal ball. But if we're going to reach down into it, we are going to disturb it. So we have to be mindful that as we emotionally are more curious and willing to discover something deeper about ourselves. But however, this is very favorable to not only where Mercury is, but also where Uranus is, where they both were in a sextile yesterday. So this is supporting this dropping of the unnecessary baggage, right? Because when you're discovering something about yourself in kind of an innocent way, putting your hand in the pool of water, you might be disturbing the serene surface of it that allows you to concentrate on the full picture, but also what you're doing is you're learning about yourself. You're going deeper into yourself, and you're realizing what you don't need in terms of your mental faculties. You also are supporting and harmonizing with this process of being able to create something in the darkness as we are having faith and surrendering to the cycle of nature that is unfolding. Okay, so this moon in Cancer today, having all of these connections, is really leading us to discover more about ourselves, to be innocent about it, to really reach down and look around for aspects about who we are emotionally and where we belong, where's our personal power. But we have to be mindful of the fact that if it disturbs the water, this is where Chiron comes in, because then we lose our focus and then we easily get pulled off track. So this is, again, Mercury and Uranus can really support this process by showing us what we don't need anymore, to drop the superfluous ideas, basically, that aren't really serving us and not allowing us to move forward, and also supporting this process with Uranus, which is constantly this disruptive, innovative, at the same time, energy around the material world. And, Uranus is going to be here for many years to come. And so there is just going to be innovation and also disruption and change and shifting and radical transformation in order to wake us up. So right now, today, with us each individually, our emotional landscape and our intuitive nature, we can discover more. We can dig down a little deeper. We can reach into a deeper emotional state, and that will support us when it comes to being able to create something in the darkness that will give us, something to look forward to as we are waiting for nature to do what nature does. So, and then beyond that today, those are the big ones. Asteroid Vesta is still in Virgo, going retrograde. So Mercury is going to also be Mercury is going to end up being in an opposition, and Virgo is the sign of her priestesses. Asteroid Vesta is a goddess Vesta, Hestia, the goddess of the hearth flame. Virgo is her priestesses. These are the virgin women, right? The women that were not bound by any convention, and they made a choice about what they were doing and who they were doing it with. And these priestesses were, of the highest caliber in terms of Hestia or Vesta's temple, right? And so Asteroid Vesta has been in Virgo for a little while now, retrograde. So it means it'll be there for a little while longer. And this is training. This is training for that part of ourselves that is disciplining ourselves to be of service to the collective, to be able to hold the sacred flame. Mercury in an opposition here. Again, it's difficult when we have when we are working with every aspect that the mind can envelop, right? Our mind can, fly through the clouds and develop our powers and skills of transcendence very easily with Mercury, because, again, it's all mutable with Mercury. And, in terms of like the Gemini energy, for instance, right? There's no limit to what we can imagine with Mercury and Pisces. But the opposition does bring us back to, we still have to be focused on our actual work, right? That is what Virgo is, our works, our duties, our routines, like the actual things that we do on a daily basis that condition us into the highest version of who we are. We still have to bring ourselves back down to that, and that is living in duality but not of duality at the same time. And so we still have to see these two parts of ourselves. So that's the astrology of the last weekend. I just really wanted to point out like how far we've come and how the path is still not entirely clear, but it's a lot clearer than it has been in a while. So let's look at the reading today, so that we can see what we're doing here, because this is just wonderful. Let me take a sip here. Thank you for that. I want to check in real quick with the chat here. Okay. So I'm also going to leave this up in a minimized form. I thought that might be better as we go through each one, so you could reflect back on where it's positioned as we look at each card individually in a magnified form, so we can really look at it. But here we go. I mean, we have Five of Swords, which keeps coming up, but she's faced away now. Like, we have crossed some sort of threshold, obviously with the eclipse. We've crossed some sort of threshold here where the defeat and the painful realizations and the sensitivity to the sharp ideas, that is in the past, and it's left there, right? So we're bringing it into the moment, but we're bringing it in a way that's like, we're not bringing the feelings and the sensitivity, but the experience and what we've learned from it is coming into this present moment. And then in the present moment, we have the Three of Discs, the works, and that is facing out towards the future. So there, in this present moment, there is a sense of there's some crystallization here, right? There is some evidence that we have made it somewhere, right? And so in our own personal lives, there's some admission that progress has been made on some level, right? And it's just the beginning. It's the first taste of something actually happening. So we are learning from that defeat and learning from all of this really confusing energy, especially with all the Pisces. Now that we have come into Aries time and Venus has moved into Aries, we've moved out of this fog. And I'm not saying that the confusion, Mercury and Pisces, there's still so much potential confusion here, but there's no limit to what we can imagine. And now we have something very palpable, which is Venus, and the sun, which is the center of who we each are, now coming into a place that is ready to move. It's got momentum to transform and to be. So in this moment, we have something very, very concrete that has happened in our lives that has given us a sense of, yes, there's progress here in a very material way, a crystallization, right? We see the Seven of Keys. The ascent is now at the top of our awareness. Now we are really seeing that movement up the mountain, that singular, determined, very committed movement up, into this ascension process in a very material way. The Seven of Scrolls, you have two sevens right here. Intricacies in industry now, and this has come up, this was last week in different positions. So now it's really at the core of who we are. And as you may or may not know, it is really what's happening in our subconscious mind that is driving our behaviors, driving our manifestation power. It's not what's happening in the conscious mind, although we do see in the conscious mind that we're in this ascension process and what it takes. It's really in our subconscious mind that we manifest from. This is this is where our thoughts come from. This is where our behaviors come from, all from the subconscious mind. This is why this is what hypnosis works on. QHHT goes real deep. It goes way beyond the subconscious. It goes into just very, very deep into the subconscious, I would say. Neuro-linguistic programming, right? NLP, yoga nidra, which is a really really easy way to, I don't want to say easy, simple, because it doesn't really take much to set your own seeds in your subconscious mind in a very relaxed, almost shavasana state, or corpse pose. That's shavasana, is corpse pose in hatha yoga. So at the core of us now, too, we are really operating from a place where we, at least in our minds, realize that it takes steps, right? It takes attention to detail. It takes cutting once, or measuring twice, cutting once, right? And the outcome here is the Empress, is the Mother Earth, the feminine, this joy and beauty and abundance. It's so good. So let's look at it. So let's do this. Maybe. There's so many. Okay, that's probably not going to work. So sorry, guys. Okay, so we have, like I said before, Venus Let's see if I can move this over here. I really want to move it. Nope. Okay, it's not going to happen. So we have Venus, Five of Swords, Venus in Aquarius. This is what was coming into the moment. I just talked about it, facing away, right? There's been a lot of feelings of defeat. There's been a lot of feelings of sensitivity to painful realizations. There's only up to go from the five. So as much as it's been painful, as much as it has really cut us to the core of our self-worth, right? There's been so much that we have learned as a result of this energy, and it's really motivating and definitely motivating to see that it is being left in the past. Like, we're taking the lessons with us, but we're not bringing the whole of this energy into the moment now because we've learned something from it. I really wish I could show you. So the Three of Discs, the works, right? This is Mars in Capricorn. Ooh, Mars loves to be in Capricorn. Industrious, right? Getting shit done, right? Each individual's fire is part of a collective process of building something substantial. The three, right? Structurally sound. We have a pyramid here. We have the alchemical marriage, sulfur and salt and Mercury all together. And you can see in this card that it's pushing away what looks like liquid Mercury, lifting itself up as a result of all of the spinning and the momentum of all of these very material things. Mercury, salt, sulfur. These are inorganic materials. These are minerals. These are elements of matter, but they are not organic, right? We still need all of these things to live. Mars in Capricorn. Mars loves to be in Capricorn. So in this moment, there is a sense, like I said, crystallization. There is some evidence of progress that we've actually created something, and there is works. Something has happened. Something has shown us we've made progress. And this is facing towards, as we saw, this is facing towards the outcome, which is the Empress. The Seven of Keys. This is not really hard to wrap our heads around in terms of we see now. Our conscious awareness is about the ascension. And it's a singular person. Each of us is responsible for getting up this mountain with our determination, with the right training, with a sense of adventure, right? And being able to be resilient in the face of some setbacks, right? That's where Jupiter is. Jupiter representing being our advocate, being our representative, being our manager, is there to give us this resiliency. And now we are aware of it. We are seeing that it's only going to be each of us taking the time to go up the mountain with determination, with a sense of adventure, with a sense of confidence. But it's not going to happen automatically, right? We have to actually climb the mountain ourselves, right? Seven of Scrolls is, oh boy. Trying to get this to move. There we go. Seven of Scrolls. Intricacies in industry. Like I said, measure twice, cut once. This person right here, you can see he's got a little plumb bob and he's making sure everything's level, right? He's got all these plans, and this is a huge thing that we're building. This is big, right? And it's totally doable. And we already have the plans, right? I'm sure there'll be times where we will have to make adjustments and amend those plans. But if we want to build something really big, an industry in itself, that takes time. It takes details. It takes meticulousness. That's all these kind of Virgo things, right? Virgo things, which is ruled by Mercury. So the scrolls, again, the realm of the mind. At the root of us now, we know it is what is infusing everything else. This sense that we have to attend to the details, but there is a path ahead to see. I mean, this is not built yet, but we see some evidence of it in our subconscious. We feel it in the root of us. It is informing us and infusing us energetically with this, this ability to see that there is progress. And it's going to take a lot more work, and we have to be on point. We can't lose our focus necessarily. This full moon, it's going to be big. We're going to see where we've lost focus And yeah, it's going to be important. We'll talk a little bit about that later. And the outcome is the Empress, the beautiful Empress, Venus in Taurus. Isn't she beautiful? Maternity, love, fulfillment, abundance, 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 the power of nature, the sacred feminine in incarnated form, right? This is Venus in Taurus, right? Our self-worth, our value, and not just us, but everything is going to come to fruition. I mean, this is, Venus in Taurus is, the abundance of the medium that allows for our growth. It's going to really blossom as a result of all of this work now that we see we've been putting in, and will continue to move forward. Oh, wow. It's going to be so good. There's abundance coming. There's abundance and maternity and love coming as a result of everything that is happening right now. So let's look at some guidance in case we need some. So up in the air, right? Upright, up in the air, as you can see, when it's upright, there's a hot air balloon. There's these two individuals, male and a female, characterized, and they are looking up at it. And so it is really, when it's upright, it is about being up in the air, like accepting what is not down on the ground yet and kind of enjoying it and not forcing it. So when it's reversed like this, we are starting to come back down to reality. And this really connects very well to where Neptune is right now, bringing the tablets down from the top of the mountain, bringing the peak experience, right, down to the earth. So there's still some unknown elements, right? But for the most part, we are coming back down to earth. We're seeing things more clearly, and we're bringing our influence to bear now. This is important to consider, especially when it comes to the ascent, right? Because we've climbed up this mountain, but it's very material. And maybe we've been so focused on it that now that we're there and we see that, it's time to be very real about it. And also we get to see, again, there's so many elements here about coming to realize everything we've put in so far. It's starting to actually materialize in some way. And this is about participating in our highest capacity, because it's our highest capacity is getting brought back down to earth. And the trust that we have had has actually borne fruit. This is another thing, is the trust that we've had is paying off, right? If we've had the trust. And now we can understand the situation more fully. This is what I say when the path ahead is not entirely clear. We still have Mercury in Pisces. It's starting to come back down. It's starting to solidify. It's starting to become more clear. We're starting to see something and see any evidence that we've been on the right path. And now it's coming back down into form with this up in the air. Now, the honeybee is our animal message, spirit message from our animal. This deck has got our animal messages from our spirit animal guides. Oh my God. Sorry, guys. Stephen B. Deemer. You remember that part. I actually was inspired to get this deck when I was in Sedona, the same time that I took that picture of Bell Rock. Let compassion and forgiveness be your top priority in the situation. So we are aware of, what we have to do, the trek up the mountain. We've become very aware of it. We are starting to, again, bring things down into reality. But this is about, not everybody is going to be, when you have to bring things back down into reality, maybe where you've been as a result of floating around out in space, you have to still deal with the reality. So compassion and forgiveness for yourself, maybe for not, depending on what was going on as a result of your detachment, compassion and forgiveness towards other people. Not everybody is in the same place about all of this. And so again, this is the Piscean aspect of compassion, forgiveness, empathy, to be our top priority in every situation, really. It always comes back to that, no matter what we are coming to realize, no matter what mandate is being brought back down from a peak experience to reality, we still have to cultivate this and hold this frequency of compassion and forgiveness. It always comes back down to love. And that's, the Empress. Venus is the goddess of love. And even though it's in a material way, it doesn't make it any less real and necessary and nurturing. So this is important. Now, when it comes to those intricacies in industries, hello, Tiger. I want you to come over here. There we go. It says you're being called upon to provide leadership. So the thing about the Tiger is obviously leadership, but it's also about the art of balancing the opposites, knowing when to act and knowing when to hold frequency. The difference, masculine and feminine, light and dark, all of these, positive, negative, the polarity of our universe and the duality of our universe as the basis of creation, right? When you're in a position providing leadership, you have to trust that you're capable of doing it and trust that you know when to act and when you know when to hold space. And that is a big part of being a very effective leader. And intricacies, we have so much to build. We have so far to go, but we are aware of what needs to happen. And so there's many of us that are stepping up now in leadership positions, and embodying this within ourselves, because this is going to give us the impetus to really keep going to build something massive that is going to take a long time and focus. And so there needs to be management, right? There needs to be people that have the long vision and know how to move in this oscillation in order to provide the leadership and the managerial skills and the representation as we are all building from this root core, right? Which is, the root chakra really does connect to Aries, right? Because it is survival, but it's the impulse to be something, because we don't have that until we come into form, in some form. So this is really about we have to learn how to move within the oscillation in order to continue to give us the ability to create these massive social and institutional structures as the old guard is falling away. Now, part of this, I suspect, with the Oracle of Delphi, first of all, it's important to realize that there are two parts to psychic intuition, which is your perception, which is the priestess, and then the interpretation, which is the priest. Now, this goes right back to the Tiger, because we have to have both of these equally balanced in order to really provide some sort of leadership. Because what does the Oracle do? The Oracle was giving direction on and advice, right? Their own transmissions about what the leadership should do. And you need both parts. You need the priestess that interprets and or perceives, and you need the priest and the masculine that's interpreting and expressing. And this is out of balance a little bit. And this is reminding us that if we're denying our inner voice in some way, then we're not going to be able to interpret anything correctly. We have to really be plugged in to that inner voice, our gut, so that we can interpret that correctly. And then we step into a position of leadership in our own lives, maybe within a cohort of some sort. It doesn't really matter. The point is that we can't deny our inner voice, and we can't provide strong leadership if we are denying our inner voice. And we certainly can't interpret the transmissions unless we are perceiving them correctly. And if we're denying that inner voice, then we aren't. So this is just, I don't want to say it's a warning, it's a reminder. It's a reminder that we are rooted into this concept that it takes a lot. It's going to take a lot in order to build these things. But if we want to be in a leadership position for our own lives even, we need to have this balanced. The oracle has to have both sides. It has to have the priestess and the priest. It's they are not, you cannot pull them apart and have, somebody needs to be interpreting what the priestess is channeling. The transmission's coming through, but somebody has to interpret it and write it down and send it out to the leadership, the masses, whatever. And it has to be interpreted correctly. That's a big part of it. And you can't provide real leadership unless these two aspects of yourself are in balance as well. And I suspect that we're still learning, right? Because it's not all totally clear yet, right? Mercury's in Pisces, and so the scribe is still, it's still a lot of imagination and fluidness and confusion at times as well. So there can be some confusing elements about what we are perceiving. But we need this if we are going to actually be able to apply it to the building of some structure that is bigger than just us. So that's the transmission today, my friends. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate each and every one of you. If you are interested in a reading, learning about your starseed origins, or energetic support through Reiki or shamanic healing, you can go to catalystenergies.net and book a service through the website. If you are interested in social media, Catalyst Energies is on Telegram. We're on Facebook. That is in the description box below. Also, if you like this material, you find it helpful, please subscribe to the channel, either YouTube or BitChute, and hit that like button. It really does help influence the AI algorithm that determines who's going to see what. So you can do that, and that's one of the best ways that you can help. There will be a Subscribe Star profile coming very soon once they set up my account for me, and that will be where we get subscribers will get exclusive content, weekly astrology, as well as a weekly community class where we can all come together and learn from each other about astrology and just kind of connect. So, guys, have a great day. Happy spring, happy equinox, either spring. I'm in the Northern Hemisphere, so spring equinox for me, but really happy equinox no matter where you are in the world. It's still a transition point, whether it is spring or autumn for you. And looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. I'll be putting out the weekly astrology here very soon.